Group Hug, a name given to commander strategies like Knaus and Tiro and Feldergriff. On the surface, unthreatening, giving resources to everyone for seemingly no reason at all, only to turn the game on its head, eventually winning with Insurrection, or milling everyone out with Folio of Fancies or Forced Fruition. But what if there was a list of the top actual nicest cards in Commander that no one's playing? Imagine building a deck with cards no one can get mad at. Don't think it's possible? Let me prove you wrong. We're going for legitimately obscure cards here, which means no Howling Mine, no Wheel of Misfortune, no Rites of Flourishing, even Scheming Symmetry is too popular. We're going off the beaten path, so get ready for some cards you've never heard of. Number 5 is Oath of Lieges, 2 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player chooses target player who controls more lands than they do and is their opponent. The first player may search their library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle. What makes Oath so nice is that there isn't a single bit of punishment for the player with the most lands. All this enchantment does is let everyone catch up. Literally no downside at all, and as players get more lands onto the battlefield, eventually the person who had the most lands will likely get outpaced and then be able to use this enchantment as well. Enchantments that give all players resources are nothing new, and many find their way into group hug strategies. Oath of Lieges does make it into Quain, Feldergriff, even Zedruu, but the difference between the Oath and a card like Tempt with Discovery is that the ability on this Oath doesn't give the caster an unfair advantage. It's a perfectly balanced and fair card, so when it hits the battlefield, the only person who could even be somewhat annoyed by it is the player with the most lands, but even then, they're not punished. So at most, Oath of Lieges would reach the level of minimal annoyance. Number 4 is Noble Benefactor, 2 of anything and 1 blue for a 2/2 human cleric. When Noble Benefactor dies, each player may search their library for a card and put that card into their hand, then each player who searched their library this way shuffles. You heard that right, Noble Benefactor is very much a demonic tutor on a stick for the entire table, but that isn't solely why it's on this list. Now sure, the caster gets to tutor for something they want, but everyone else does too, and the caster is the one who had to pay the 3 mana and use a valuable deck slot for the Benefactor. So really, if we're being honest, the caster gets less out of this card than everyone else, even if what they're searching for is some type of infinite or degenerative combo. They just gave the rest of the table the same advantage. There's just no way to make that work 100% in your favor as the caster, which means that there really isn't a way for anyone to hate this card. You almost couldn't ask for more from a symmetrical effect. Everyone gets the card they want the most, the caster is the only one who has to pay the cost associated with the effect, and the tutor is completely symmetrical. It's a perfectly nice card, no sarcasm. Moving into the top 3, we have Lifeline, 5 mana for an artifact. Whenever a creature dies, if another creature is on the battlefield, return the first card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. I use the errata text because it's simply easier to understand. Lifeline is a wildly powerful card that basically no one's playing, and it's a real shame. Lifeline is aptly named. It gives a lifeline to every single creature that dies as long as at least one creature is left on the battlefield when they die. It doesn't just resurrect the caster's creatures or even care about who the caster is at all. Lifeline doesn't discriminate. If a creature dies and there is another creature on the battlefield, it's coming back every single time forever. If a board wipe knocks out everything besides a single creature with indestructible on it, you bet Lifeline is going to bring each and every one of those creatures back one at a time. So what kind of decks usually run something like this? The answer is technically none. No decks usually run this, but the ones that do are hilarious and very niche. Azmira Holy Avenger wants to mass sacrifice all your creatures over and over again, and then Lifeline brings them back each time. Honestly savage from a green-white deck, not the alignment I thought would be creating a meat recycling factory. There's also Eiley for obvious sack synergy reasons, any of the dragon spirits from Kamigawa thanks to their death triggers. Imagine being able to repeatedly get Kokosho's triggers, so funny, but I digress. Lifeline is one of the most unusual cards in the game, and the fact that its trigger is so aggressively symmetrical is probably why it doesn't get the attention it deserves. Even when it was $5, I was screaming about it and no one was playing it, so price certainly isn't the issue here. If you want to spice up your Commander or casual games with something interesting, look at Lifeline as a plane chase card because it kind of works that way. It changes the rules of death and Magic, and not many cards do that, especially in a symmetrical way. No one can really be upset if you play Lifeline. You'd be hard-pressed to find players who wouldn't want death insurance on all their creatures. It's a great card and criminally underplayed. Number 2 is Arborea, 2 of anything and 2 green for a world enchantment. Yeah, we're going back a ways for the original printing on this one. Creatures can't attack a player unless that player casts a spell or put a non-token permanent onto the battlefield during their last turn. Of course, yes, obviously this is a Pillow Fort type card, but it applies to everyone, and the reason why it's earned number 2 on this list is because it helps the players who are the furthest behind without really punishing the players who are the furthest ahead. In a multiplayer game, how long do you think it'll go on before at least one other person is casting a spell or putting a non-token permanent onto the battlefield? Not long would be the correct answer. So even in a game where someone is playing an infuriating Pillow Fort deck, this card isn't nearly as oppressive as most other Pillow Fort enchantments you may have come into contact with. To dive into this a little deeper, Arborea basically gives a helping hand to players who are mana-starved or have literally nothing going on in their hand. Notice the card says non-token permanent. Lands are permanent, so merely just playing a land is enough for Arborea to no longer protect you. Its protection is an incredibly light touch that can be turned off very easily. Even planeswalkers can still be attacked under the protection of Arborea. That's how unobtrusive it is on the game state. So even when you're the player who is the furthest ahead, who isn't mana-starved, who is developing their board the fastest, do you really care about Arborea? You're ahead, and the only reason you can't attack the weakest player at the table is because they have legit no resources to play. Do you want to be attacking them anyways in a casual game? I mean, maybe if they took the last piece of pizza or are playing Send triplets, but then again, if they're playing Send triplets, they shouldn't be in a casual game of Commander now, should they? I'm getting off topic, you get my point. Arborea protects the weak without punishing the strong. At best, a lukewarm pillow fort card, very difficult to have any feelings about this card that aren't neutral. Number 1 and the ultimate neutral card in all of Magic's history, Divine Intervention. A whopping 6 of anything and 2 white for an enchantment, Divine Intervention enters the battlefield with 2 intervention counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove an intervention counter from Divine Intervention. If there are no intervention counters on it, the game is a draw. That's right, the game ends as a draw. The caster of this giant 8-mana enchantment doesn't even win the game. The reason it's number 1 on this list is because of the following scenario. You're having a casual Commander game with your friends, but no one wants to be the first one to kill someone else, removing them from the game and making it awkward with them sitting around with nothing to do and the other 3 players having fun. Maybe you like being the bad guy and progressing the game forward, but plenty of players hate doing that, so you're left with a multi-hour long game where board states build up, get wiped out, everything gets convoluted, and the game never really finishes. Well, Divine Intervention takes away all that social anxiety and bad feelings and replaces it with a 2-turn guilt-free clock. Think about the card's power here. It's a massive mana investment for the caster, and the first counter doesn't even come off until the caster's next upkeep, so there are 2 full rotations before the draw even happens. More than enough time for everyone else to focus on killing the caster if they really want to, but if they don't end up killing them, it's a draw, which means a snack break for everyone, and no one has to feel bad about killing anyone or even losing in general because no one lost. This is true neutrality as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing more neutral than aiming to end the game in a draw, especially when it comes at such a high price for the player trying to make it happen. Of all the nice cards in Magic, Divine Intervention is by far the most merciful. I hope you enjoyed this silly top 5 list, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.